If it's Wednesday, we are in fact talking about your money, and today we're going to talk about taxes. I know, it's October, but it's never too early to talk about it because this pandemic has changed everything, including how we decide to file our taxes, what the do's and don'ts are. So we've brought back our friend Joel Boff. He is a tax partner, and I want to start first with the home office. Are we allowed to deduct the home office? This is my home office, but it also is a classroom. It's a disaster zone, as I like to call it. So can I deduct this?
Oh, the answer is maybe, and it's not necessarily a
Oh,
great answer, but let's give a little bit of history of the home office deduction. They've been around for a long time. Most people say they have home offices, but in most instances, home offices weren't necessarily allowed because they needed to be your principal place of business. But now, with COVID, most everybody finds themselves working from either home or another location. Um, So the home office needs to be a specific place in your home or your apartment that is designated as a office space and only an office space. I see you're sitting at a table. It can't necessarily be a portion of your dining room. It needs to be a specific space that's dedicated solely to where you are working.
Joel, you're breaking my heart, but let's continue driving this tax train. That is actually excellent information because yes, this is just a piece of a dining room table. It is not dedicated solely to working. What about working from another state? Because a lot of folks are working from their home state but continue to work in a different state. Most of those folks are working in New York. How does that affect our taxes if we're working from another state?
This is a huge issue that's come up with COVID and people working from another state, a state in which, they live. Take, for example, myself, I live in New Jersey. My primary office is in New York, but most of us haven't been in New York since, the middle of March. So it changes the landscape of where you are filing from an income tax standpoint, not only where you are working, but where your employer it also says you're working. Are they still withholding New York State income taxes, even though you haven't been in New York State or any other state, probably since the middle of March? So it's going to be an interesting filing season because many folks, they made a beeline out of town and they may have been working from Massachusetts. So does that give their employer a
Sure.
Massachusetts filing requirement? A lot of questions with this filing season.
And Joel, to that end, do people have to stop paying the high New York City, New York State tax because they haven't been there for most people since March?
That's one of the biggest questions we get. I'm no longer in my New York City apartment. I'm working from either Long Island or Westchester or another state completely. Can I stop paying New York City income tax? The answer is probably not unless you are getting out of New York City and calling another state home, for the foreseeable future and the rest of your life. New York City or New York State is always going to say if you have a residence, whether or not you're there full time, and you don't plan to move out full time, they're going to try to tax you as a resident, and they will likely do so successfully. So be very careful. Remember that when audits happen, they're usually 2 and 3 years down the road. So hindsight's 2020, and the state or the city will have plenty of hindsight.
Joel, last question, real quick. Medical bills, what can we do to offset the cost or not when it comes to preparing our taxes?
Well, first and foremost, hopefully everyone won't need to deal with the medical bills. Hopefully everyone is safe and healthy. To the extent there are medical bills incurred, it's important to document those medical bills, keep very good track of those medical bills. And just because you might not get a medical deduction from a federal standpoint, some of the states have lower floor thresholds. So you could very well get benefit for the state in which you're living. Organization and keeping good records is really key here.
Organization, I love it. Joel Boff, thank you so much for your hindsight. I'm sure there will be plenty more questions as the year progresses. Great to see you again.
Thank you very much.